When it comes to hunting boots, how many pairs does one man need? Well, how many seasons are there? Turkey season? Deer season? Duck season? Dove season?
Honey, how many pairs of boots does one man need?
At least one more pair. For just about everything for hunting, go to MidwayUSA.com. I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA. Thanks for your business.
For almost 50 years, Midway USA has been America's go-to source for just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Go to MidwayUSA.com to see our latest deals and promotions and take advantage of our super fast same-day shipping. If you need a cooler, a new fishing rod, another rifle, ammo, or a reloading press, you can find it all at MidwayUSA.com. Thanks for your business.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Western Hunting Hub Podcast. I have Joey Livingston on in this episode, and we are discussing the Colorado Wolf Restoration and Management Plan. It is definitely a contentious topic, one that folks are not excited about, or they are excited about. I'm sure my listeners here, I'm going to assume most of you are anti-wolf, but I think it's important to realize that we've done what we can. If you've gone to the listening session, the public comment period, you've been allowed to make your comments. You've been allowed to vote. I voted as well. And at this point, it's now written into law that these things are coming, despite whether there's some there or not. So please look at this with an objective lens and say, okay, this is what we're dealt with. Now what? How it's being approached, and they're a cool species. Think of it that way. It's another species out, and as hunters and sportsmen, I'm pretty sure we all like wildlife. We really appreciate wildlife. We like them. This one just comes with some different challenges. Same with the lynx, the lion, mountain lion. Bears, man, I love bears, and predators always get a lot of attention in the media as well as amongst sportsmen's groups. But I love bears, and I'll go back to that. They're such a cool species. I love eating them. I love hunting them. I love seeing them. And maybe one day we're looking at wolves the same way. Maybe not eating them, but anyway. Give this a listen with Joey. Joey does a great job breaking down this management plan. Give him a couple of tough questions, and we chat it out, find out what this plan consists of, and answer some of my questions as far as the funding, how wolves are funded, and recovery goals, how that's accomplished. So I'm sure you will have some follow-up questions. So ask them. Maybe not to me, because I'm not going to have the answers, but reach out to Colorado Parks and Wildlife and ask those questions. And again, thanks as always for listening. Give this one a full listen. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Western Hunting Hub Podcast. I have Joey Livingston on again from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. He is the statewide public communications officer and has been with the division for some time and seen a lot of the policy changes and the works that have happened. And you guys are a part of a pretty big deal and a contentious deal. Some people are celebrating, some people are frustrated, and we kind of talked last time about how this would be another conversation. Well, it might be a conversation and a half. So thanks for joining me, Joey, and I look forward to chatting with you about wolves.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So if you're wanted to learn more about Joey in the previous episodes that we did, you can hear that intro there, but we have so much I want to tackle, so we'll just jump right into it. The elephant in the room with this discussion, the wolf management plan, is that, and everybody says right out the gate, we already have wolves that are here. Why do we need this? And I think I can answer that. it seems to me that, well, the breeding pairs were coming in that process of it getting on the ballot, and it was after some of that vote and so on. But those, whatever the timeline is, it doesn't matter. The comment I've seen CPW put out is that it did not satisfy, what we have there does not satisfy what the voters requested. And once things get on a ballot, I mean, we can't just say, oh, there's wolves here already. It was voted in. So by law, CPW has to introduce wolves and to increase that. Do I kind of got that correct, or what would you add to that?
Yeah, that's correct. As a state agency, we have to follow the will of the voters, and the voters, directed us to develop a plan to restore and manage gray wolves using best available scientific data, and to establish and maintain a viable, self-sustaining wolf population in Colorado. And so throughout, the planning process of that, we worked with the Keystone Policy Center to hold a bunch of public meetings, appointed 2 advisory bodies, 1 technical working group with wildlife professionals that contributed scientific and policy expertise, and helped set management strategies and population objectives to meet those recovery goals.
What a process! I listened in to a few. I mean, they're all on YouTube, so you can go back and watch the commission meetings. And so I watched a few of those, or pieces of them, because they're long, lot to absorb there for content. And man, you can get in the weeds quick. You can get in the weeds with how can they be called to? Can you be in a campground howling? Because can you with an intent to bring one in? Can you just the in the weeds stuff? My gosh, which I suppose that's why this Colorado Wolf Restoration and Management Plan is 261 pages long. There's a lot that has to be dealt with. So my goal and my ask when we started chatting about this was, could we just do a summary of this? I know 99% of us are not going to read it, because I will admit, I haven't read it. It's 260 pages long. I don't know where to start. And I never have time to sit down and read anything anyway. So I needed help. And a lot of the voters and sportsmen would really like a summary of this to break it down. And so I'll just turn this over to you. If you could help us walk through kind of what this plan includes, and break it down for us.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give a summary of kind of the planning process going into this first. And so a big majority of the last part of that 260-page plan is the recommendations from our technical working group and stakeholder advisory group. So it really kind of, expands the size of that document. But, as we were saying, the Colorado voters voted in Proposition 114, which directed CPW to develop a plan to restore and manage gray wolves in Colorado using the best scientific data available, as well as hold statewide hearings to acquire information to be considered in developing a plan, taking into account scientific, economic, and social considerations pertaining to such restoration. And so, as I said, we appointed 2 advisory bodies. One of those was the technical working group, which are wildlife professionals from all over the country. They contributed scientific and policy expertise. And then we also appointed a stakeholder advisory group. This one was very important. It brought together wolf advocates, sports persons, outfitters, livestock owners, and some members that represented multiple perspectives to help address some of the issues around management, like lethal and non-lethal measures as appropriate. And so during that, the technical working group and stakeholder advisory group, they were instrumental in CPW developing a draft plan. And we presented that draft plan on December 9th to our commission. So once that draft plan was submitted, we held a series of public meetings throughout January, February, and March, and heard feedback from over 400 people on their concerns with the plan and changes that they wanted to see. And so throughout that process, we held a bunch of commission meetings, the ones you're probably referencing there, and our commission heard from the public and made recommendations on a final plan. There were some changes that were made before a final plan was submitted, and that plan, the final plan, was approved unanimously by our commission on May 3rd. And so we are pushing forward with that plan, and we believe that it developed a science-based approach that incorporates the biological needs of wolves and the social concerns of Colorado citizens. That was a vital part of developing that plan, is to incorporate both biological needs and social concerns. And so just some of the more important aspects of the plan. It's a very thorough, well thought out plan. So won't get too into the weeds, but
sure.
A big part of the plan was to make sure that we're working to minimize wolf-related conflicts with domestic animals, livestock, other wildlife, and people, and coming up with a depredation compensation plan was a big part of the discussion throughout those public hearings. And we did raise some of those compensation limits throughout the process. And so the current plan allows for compensation for livestock and guard dogs up to $15,000 or fair market value. We also include allowing reimbursement for veterinary bills up to $15,000 on a separate cap in case you have a livestock that gets injured. You pay a bunch of money for vet bills and it dies anyway. We have separate caps to allow adequate compensation there. We also created compensation plans for missing livestock or decreases in production. So because there's wolves in the area, there's decreased weaning weights, conception rates, or other indirect losses due to wolves in the area. We have compensation plans in place for that. And so that was a big part of the plan, to make sure that that there's not any undue burden put on livestock owners from losses to wolves. The plan also, with recommendations from the technical working group, set recovery goals. So the plan is to recover and maintain a viable, self-sustaining wolf population in Colorado, and technical working group determined that if we remove wolves from the state endangered and threatened species list, that would meet those goals. And they did set some population recommendations for that. So to reduce wolves from the endangered, the state endangered to state threatened species list, CPW must observe 50 wolves for 4 consecutive years. And to reduce them from threatened to a threatened species to non-game species, we would need to observe 150 wolves anywhere in the state for 2 years, or 200 wolves total. So the plan is to reintroduce 10 to 15 wolves per year for 3 to 5 years. So the plan is, reintroduce 30 to 50 wolves over that 3 to 5 year period. And the plan does not consider any changes, any reductions from a non-game to a game species.
Okay, so I'm kind of just breaking down these categories. The main one there is we have livestock interactions that we're working through, recovery goals.
Yes.
Then there's a piece that's on monitoring.
The
population.
Yeah, so we also will be placing a GPS collar on every wolf that we reintroduce into the state, so we can keep track of where they're at, where they're moving to. The plan, recognizes that wolves will move, and we did, as far as reintroduction locations, we created a 60-mile buffer from the northern and western state borders and the southern Ute tribes to the south, as well as west of the 60-mile buffer from the Continental Divide in Colorado, which kind of breaks the state kind of in the middle there. But that was directed by the state statute to reintroduce wolves west of the Continental Divide in Colorado.
Okay. So if you were to break this down with like just under 10 categories: livestock interactions, recovery goals, monitoring, education and outreach, funding. I feel like I'm missing some more of the just regular management related stuff.
Yeah, we'll also be conducting, creating an annual report on those wolf populations that we'll present to the commission just to monitor how the efforts are going. And, as far as tracking those wolves, long term, our goal is to have at least one collar in each pack, preferring to have 2 collars in each pack on the breeding pairs. And so there will be a thorough tracking and monitoring system of wolves as they establish in the state as well.
Okay. Is it all right with you if we dive into each one of those just with a touch more detail?
Yeah.
The order might be a little I'll try to stick within whatever order that makes sense. But we already started on some of the livestock interactions because I think that primarily with where the wolves are going in the northwest portion of the state is primarily agricultural, natural resource extraction. All of those things are right up in that area, but a lot of ranching in that area. So definitely brings about some concerns. What are some of those? Walk us through maybe a scenario of how it could potentially work. Say rancher Jim calls with an issue. I have a dead wolf, or I have injured, or not a dead wolf. That's a different situation. I have a dead cow, and what happens? What's the process? What has all use that as a way to walk through this?
Yeah, so Colorado already has depredation from mountain lions and bears, and so that is something that our wildlife staff is well trained to respond to. Depredating incidents. They also receive training in some other states to learn how to identify wolf depredation versus mountain lion and bear depredation. And so the state statute requires us to respond to those incidents even now within 24 hours and to respond and gather evidence from the scene to determine, what kind of depredation happened, if it was depredation at all. A lot of times it could be, something died and then was picked on by a coyote or something else. And so our officers are trained to respond to those situations and to conduct necropsies and everything that they need to do to determine what actually happened there at the scene. So our folks will be responding as quickly as possible to get out there and work with that landowner and see what's going on. We didn't mention lethal management yet, but lethal management is allowed in this plan. CPW wants to prioritize non-lethal management first and try to do work with those landowners to try to install turboflaggery or other methods to try to reduce conflicts, prevent conflicts in the first place. And
what is that turboflaggery?
Yeah, so that is it's material that is placed on fencing. And it's something that just is unfamiliar and kind of scares wolves. It's been tested in other states and shown to have some limited success. There's other options as well, but that is a major one that we're focused on. It's something you can't leave up year round, or they can get used to it. But during calving season, if you put flags around the fence, it can be sometimes be enough to deter those wolves from coming around. and so that we have programs to work with those ranchers to try to implement those measures. We also hired Adam Baca. He's a wolf conflict coordinator. He's up working in the Northeast right now, working with those ranchers that have wolves in their area right now. And so a big part of what we do
Northwest.
Up in the Northwest. Okay. And so a big part of what, Adam's going to be doing and what other wildlife officers currently do is have relationships with those livestock owners, with those ranchers. That's an important part of their job, is to, be on a first name basis with those folks, so that when incidents do occur, they can, respond directly and know who that landowner is, what kind of, livestock they have. And so just having that direct relationship is an important part of what CPW does already.
What other non-lethal forces are going to be used or tried, attempted, and at what point and how are lethal options available?
Yeah, so as far as lethal tools go, we will allow it for chronically depredating wolves or active depredation in some situations. Now we do need the 10J ruling to get approved by the Parks and Wildlife, or by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, before we would have lethal management tools at our disposal. But we're confident that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is going to approve that before we even get wolves on the ground. We will also have programs in place to allow landowners to apply to get a permit themselves to lethally take wolves if we've exhausted some of the non-lethal tools so far.
Will they be treated similarly to the bears, where, and I know trapping a bear is far easier by throwing stuff out, filling it with donuts, and hopefully you got a bear in the trap later on. But will it be treated in a similar way with, you get problem bears, you get problem lions, you get problem those, and I would assume the same with a pack of wolves or an individual wolf. Is that going to be dealt with in a similar way where I don't know how you do that if trapping is something that can't really be done as much like with the bears?
Yeah, so it'll be it's a kind of a separate but a similar process, and so we're using the term chronic depredation. So if depredation keeps happening, and we've tried the turbo fladry, also things like shell crackers, propane cannons, fox lights, things like that. If we've exhausted those non-lethal tools, depredation keeps happening, that's when we would step in and use that lethal management. Okay.
And how is up to 15,000 determined, or some of those things? Is that just in that role of the officer determining what that damage is? How do they figure that out?
Yeah, we've got those processes in place already for lion and bear depredation, and so it's based on fair market value of that animal. So if that animal went to sale right then, what would be the market value? So many of these depredation incidents won't get up to that $15,000 cap. Many of them will be significantly lower. And the original plan actually had an $8,000 cap, and we raised it to $15,000 after hearing feedback from livestock producers during that public process.
Is that the same or similar to the other depredation costs, reimbursements?
Yeah, bears and lions is currently set at $8,000, and so this will be an increase compared to. Now, I know some of our folks, would believe to raise that $8,000 cap, because especially livestock owners, some of their livestock is worth more than that. But those numbers are set in state statute right now, and so these wolf numbers were up for decision now, and so that's where we made that change to wolves, which is different than what we have for bears and lions currently.
Okay. All right. That's good enough on that one. Recovery goals. And I've got a question on this. I know the term suitable habitat was thrown around a lot, and seems to be one of those concerns as that's discussed in being on the ESA list, and getting off of it. What is suitable habitat? Is it subjective to that? Or is those numbers you gave me, the 50, the 150, 200, more just statewide? So how do we know if they're fully recovered? And yeah, some of that, let's dive into the recovery goals.
Yeah, so, the wolves will move once we reintroduce them. The plan does recognize that, and that's why we did create the 60-mile buffer zones. And so, we anticipate that they will move into some of those areas. And, that's part of having those GPS tracking collars is going to be important. And, we do, population estimates for almost all species in Colorado. So that is a normal process that CPW goes through. And so, throughout this reintroduction, we're going to be, thoroughly tracking and thoroughly checking every year. Even now, we're up there, trying to keep eyes on the two wolves that we know are here and make sure that they're collared and we know where they're at. And so, that's going to be an important process as we move towards recovery.
Okay. Yeah, that would be my concern is the as they move, maybe it's big migrations or movements, distribution across those, and they move into another more suitable habitat, and now we have, well, that area can be filled. Well, then now that area could be filled up, and they find a new place that we don't know for whatever reason. We dump them in a spot that just, this is perfect. It's perfect. It's a long ways away from this and that. It's a great location, and for some reason they just don't want to stay there. They want to go somewhere else. Yeah. So yeah, that would be my concern. And I'm also kind of curious about how a location is going to be chosen on where to place those.
Yeah, we've chosen not exact locations. We're not publicizing exact locations, but we do have a general area where we plan to reintroduce them. And it's very possible that those wolves don't want to stay where we reintroduce them. They'll have just went through a tough experience being trapped and relocated, and might want to run off and not stay where we put them. And so that is something that was recognized. One of the advisory bodies that I mentioned, the technical working group, consisted of experts, biological experts, scientists, and so they helped determine where that suitable habitat was, and making those. We have some maps that we publicized showing some of those general locations, and even have some resources that show determination of what was suitable habitat and what wasn't. And so that was all part of the planning process with the technical working group, was to try to determine where those areas with suitable habitat were.
Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
At Midway USA, we put customers first. The Nitro Express shipping system is icing on the cake. It was a big investment of time and money to take super fast, low-cost shipping to a whole new level. The Nitro Express helps ensure same-day shipping and low shipping costs. We hope you enjoy the Nitro Express. We built it just for you. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA. Thanks for your business.
So I got a total off the wall question that just hit me. We part of this plan is the livestock, the monitoring, all the things we've talked about, and sportsmen are involved, and the non-sportsman group, the anti-group. But as far as when I was there in that state, and I voted on this as well, part of the discussion was very little discussion on some voters, a lot of discussion on others, where I heard things like, "Oh, wolves here. That'd be cool to see a wolf." Yes. And the chances of seeing a wolf, I think, are very slim to nil, especially when there's only 200 or 50 or 150. Is there any discussion about recreation, wildlife viewing of the species, people wanting to come from the city to come look for one? Is there any discussion on that that would impact those areas?
Yeah, I mean, CPW's been developing resources to educate people on, living with wolves in areas where there will be, and we have similar resources for bears and lions as well. And so, as you said, seeing one is going to be very rare. Similar to even, we have lots of bears, and some people still never see a bear. So,
right.
It's most people definitely won't see them. We're also not going to be publicizing the GPS data on where those wolves are, just to prevent people, seeing that a wolf was spotted here and trying to drive up and try to see it themselves. So we are going to be, holding back a little bit on exact locations. But as wolves do become more established in the state, like I said before, we're going to try to have at least one collar on each pack. And over time, hoping to develop maps, like a pack. So we're going to try to have a collar on each pack and have pack maps as well that you see in other states, where we try to determine, what is this pack range, so that, people can be at least educated when they go out, and, if they know they're camping in this area, at least they can be educated and know, okay, I need to be a little bit more careful because there's wolves out here.
Got it. Because I know even in the facility I work in, when a screech owl is spotted, or a wood duck is spotted, or something kind of bird or something, the birders come out, and the photographers with their big lens come out, and they flock there. They drive there quickly to go see what everybody's seeing, to get a good picture.
We see the same thing with a moose in town sometimes. Right. We don't want to move them sometimes, but sometimes it just becomes, so many people running down there that, risk of someone getting hurt increases, and we do have to step in and take action. And, similar thing would be the case for wolves if, they're moving into, a downtown area. We would have to step in just like we do with bears and lions and relocate them out of those areas.
Right. So that hits on monitoring. I think we got a good grasp on that. Education and outreach, you've got kind of those pieces there that you were just discussing on the maps and on that stuff. Is there any other educational components we haven't talked about that are being considered?
We are working with some schools to do some school education programs. Educating kids is always important, and but we have a variety of resources, and we do a lot of education around bears and lions every year as well. And so moving forward, wolves will be incorporated into all of our education and outreach efforts as needed.
I've used some of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife School curriculum when I was in the classroom educator. Like the species question was named one of them, and that was all around the Gunnison sage grouse. And a lot of teachers look for like critter crates and that sort of thing. Are you guys looking at those avenues of the curriculum, critter crates, and that sort of thing for teachers and educators to use?
I do know we are creating some curriculum and creating some educational videos that will be used in schools. And I don't know for sure, but I imagine we'll be creating, education kits as well. We have those for a variety of species, and that's a great thing that I love about CPW is some of the education we work is just top tier, and some of the classroom materials that we support is really top notch.
Okay. Well, one of the last ones in all this is the funding, and I think that's a pretty large one. That was my question right out the gate: is how is this being paid for? I know when CPW did, I was not living in Colorado at the time when the moose reintroduction was happening. I was pretty young, actually. What year was that? I know 2000, early 2000s.
I think moose began in the 70s, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even alive.
Lynx. I think lynx was kind of in the early 2000s.
Okay. I just had some data I used in my classroom. That was my first activity of the year for my ninth grade science kids, was to graph the moose population in Colorado. Just doing some graphing practice, yeah. And that data always started in 2005. So anyway, that was one of my questions concerns is the cost, the amount of money put into reintroduction of the lynx, the moose work, all of those sorts of things. And sportsmen are concerned that that's coming out of their pocket, and $15,000 up to 15, let's just say it's on average 8 or 8,000. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Where's the funding coming from?
Well, state statute requires us to not use sports persons' dollars for any depredation, any wolf depredation compensation. So hunting and fishing license dollars will not be going towards any depredation compensation. And so right now, it's currently funded through the general fund. This was voted on by the entire state, and so this is one of the few scenarios where CPW is utilizing some general tax revenue. But there's also a variety of other funding mechanisms that we have that aren't sports persons' dollars. So we have a species conservation fund, which is a severance tax on oil and gas production. We also have a non-game conservation and wildlife restoration fund, which is people can make voluntary contributions when they're filing their taxes. And we also have a wildlife cash fund that's funded through lottery dollars. So lottery funds a lot of habitat work in Colorado. And, to help, address some of the, concerns, funding concerns, recently the state did pass 2 new bills that the governor signed. One of them is creates a wolf depredation compensation fund, which is allocated from the general fund to pay specifically for those depredating incidents, and pay for those, up to $15,000 fees would be coming from that wolf depredation compensation fund. And then as far as conflict minimization, which, as I mentioned, non-lethal tools are going to be a big part of what we try to do to reduce those compensation costs. The state did create a special license plate. We do a variety of special license plates that you can purchase for your vehicle and supports different efforts. This one would be an optional license plate that would fund some of those non-lethal conflict reduction efforts.
Okay. And I've been direct result of GOCO funding. If you don't know what that is, folks, look up GOCO. GOCO is lottery dollars, and in the education world, they do some pretty cool things with the Inspire grant. But was part of that and gave me a job for a couple of years doing some awesome outdoor education in Western Colorado. So I really like that. That created a great job for me, and had COVID not been right as we were getting rolling with that, it could have been even better. So it's still kind of repairing. That really jacked us up. But anyway, summarize then sportsmen's involvement with funding, and I would assume that is a lot of staff time and staff positions, because you've got staff positions that are available there, and I know staff positions almost have to be funded probably by license dollars, unless they get some of the federal money to code their time towards.
Yeah, so none of the federal dollars. It's just going to be the ones I mentioned, and kind of on the internal sort of stuff at CPW. We have a variety of ways to allocate our time and our timesheets. And so if we're working on this many hours on this project, we have a code that we use for that. If we're working this many hours on this project, we put that code in for that. And so that's how the funding is distributed through using those codes whenever we're actually putting in our time. So if someone's working time on wolf stuff that needs to come out of a specific fund, they would use that funding code to make sure that the resources are coming from the correct place.
And has that been kind of, I'm assuming it has, budgeted out to kind of see approximate time and already the time that's been used for the staff meetings, the planning, without even having the recovered wolves on the ground, all of those resources that are being used where you would be coding your time to wolf recovery. Has that been budgeted out, and any ideas on how any additional stuff is going to be recovered?
We're still developing, long-term processes for that. As far as, we have certain, positions that are dead, like Adam Baca, wolf conservation or conflict minimization coordinator. That's his primary job. We also have several other staff that were hired on to work specifically on wolf efforts, and so the funding for those is wouldn't be coming from sports persons dollars.
Okay. Next question would be just how's CPW handling a lot of the lack of sportsman support on this issue. And I chatted with Perry Will. I did an episode with him long ago, a few years ago, and chatted with him on it. And he is not a supporter of having them around. And many sportsmen, I'm just going to assume, which is not always a good thing, but in the circles I've been around, we're not seeing a lot of support from the sportsmen. How is CPW handling that?
CPW, we are kind of in the middle of some of these issues all of the time, and so we hear from both sides of a lot of these, a lot of different topics. But we did the public comment periods where we allowed the public to come in and voice their concerns with the plan. And so during that period, we did hear from people on both sides of the reintroduction issue. And, there were some sports persons that supported the plan. But many of the public's concerns were incorporated into the final plan. And so, part of the planning process was to try to reach consensus on a lot of these issues. And some people are just not happy that the wolves are coming here anyway. But that is the will of the voters, and so that's what's going to be happening. And so once people accepted that, it was just trying to come up with a plan that everyone could live with. People did have to sometimes sacrifice what they wanted to see, and people on both sides of the issues had to make some sacrifices to reach that consensus. And so, some of the things that were removed, some wolf advocates didn't like wording around designation as a game species. And so that was removed from the plan. And we also heard from livestock owners that the compensation rates were insufficient, and so we increased those plans. And lethal management was opposed by many wolf advocates. We're very upset with that, but we felt that that was going to be an important management tool for CPW to have in its arsenal. And we kept that in the plan. And, lethal management was something that was supported by many sports persons. And so, we believe this plan is the best available that we could do to try to reach that consensus and compromise.
And with game species not being included, is it set up at all for any point in the next 20, 30 years for this ever to be allowed to have hunters be a part of the management?
Well, the current plan doesn't consider wolf hunting. It's just, to identify steps
Right.
needed to recover, maintain viable viable self-sustaining wolf population in Colorado. And, we really can't predict what future Parks and Wildlife commissions will decide to do once we do reach those goals. And, classifying as a game species, it may even be beyond the authority of our commission and may require legislative approval. And these considerations are not anticipated to take place until many years into the future, if at all. But future commissions, if they gain proper legal authority, it's possible that they classify them as a game species. But it's hard for us to predict
Of course.
the future or what they'll do. But currently we're going to use all the management options that we have at our disposal, preferring non-lethal over lethal tools to manage in Colorado.
Is there a date on this management plan? Say this is and I heard the introductory or reintroduction of 3 to 5 years or so, but is there a end date at which this plan will be revised for the next 5 years or something like that?
So we are going to be doing annual reports to the commission, and I don't know the exact dates, but I do know there was discussion of coming back to and reassessing and moving forward, creating a new plan. But I don't know the dates exactly.
Right. As a hunter and watching these commission meetings, it gets a little frustrating sometimes. Just watching the influence of the anti-hunting groups' involvement, and our Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission is changed quite a bit, especially with where Governor Polis sits with some things and the appointed commissioners. And I see Touchton, if I said his name right, he is opposed to, or he is very for the reintroduction of wolves. And how is some of these different viewpoints influencing how CPW manages the wolves?
Yeah, CPW is a broad agency with a broad mission. We are Colorado Parks and Wildlife, so our mission is to perpetuate the wildlife resources of the state, provide a quality state park system, and provide enjoyable and sustainable outdoor recreation opportunities that educate and inspire current and future generations to serve as active stewards of Colorado's natural resources. And so, by design, the commission represents a broad spectrum of sports persons' interests. The commission, as you said, it's a citizen board appointed by the governor with 11 voting members. 3 of those are sports persons. 1 of the sports persons must be an outfitter. We have 3 agricultural producers, 3 recreationalists, and then 2 at-large members. And a minimum of 4 of those members must live west of the Continental Divide. And so, the members are expected to represent all park and wildlife related issues, regardless of their affiliation. And, as the citizen board that sets regulations and policies for CPW, by nature, they influence how CPW operates and manages wildlife through a variety of processes, such as the approval of herd management plans or approving license number recommendations. But it's important to know, CPW's wildlife staff is almost entirely wildlife biologists. All of our officers are all need a biology degree to become a wildlife officer. And those staff all have the best interests of Colorado's wildlife at heart. And, CPW, we don't vote on the commission, but we play, a critical role in making recommendations to the commission. And we have, dedicated wildlife staff that present to the commission at every meeting, advocating for policies that and regulations that they think are in the best interest of wildlife in Colorado. And public interest in hunting remains strong in Colorado. Hunting license sales continue to be the primary funding source for wildlife management projects conducted by CPW. But yeah, by nature, the commission is going to have an influence on how CPW operates.
Thanks for answering that. I know I'm putting you on the spot with a semi-challenging question, but big one is next. Where are these wolves going to come from? And I've been reading some news articles. I think Wyoming is the most outspoken on not from here, as from what I have seen and read, that they're not in support of the management plan, and they're not coming from Wyoming, from what I hear. So I know Montana and Idaho, with possible discussions of Washington and Oregon, but those states would probably be pretty tricky to do. So what's because I see the similar conversation or news articles of in Montana and Idaho that there's not any formal discussions happening on those sorts of things. So what's maybe this is just the giant hurdle right now of where are these things coming from?
Yeah. Well, it was critical for us to have this plan in place before beginning those formal conversations. And it's been a long 2.5-year process to get this plan in place. But with the plan in place now, those talks are beginning in earnest, and so formal conversations are happening. I've mentioned the technical working group a lot in here. They were critical to developing this plan, and our goal is to as recommended by the technical working group, to source wolves from northern Rocky states, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, or Washington. And, Wyoming has said that they do not want to provide them, but we're confident we can work with some other states to find a source population before our reintroduction deadline in December.
Say that again. Which states have said no, not at this time?
Yeah, I know Wyoming has publicly said that they will not provide them. But we are beginning those formal conversations, and
okay.
Our plan was final plan approved back in May, and so those conversations are ongoing.
Say you just can't work something out, or the state say sure, but $1 million per wolf. What do you do? I mean, it's the requirement legally for CPW to do this reintroduction, but if they're just have exhausted all resources and just cannot get it done, how do we handle that?
Yeah, we're confident we'll be able to find a source population. These sorts of transfers happen all the time between state agencies, and so we are confident that we will find a source.
And other concerns with that are what species of wolf gets introduced is. Because it was already written in there, gray wolf, correct? That's the species. So it could not be timber wolves or like the Mexican gray wolf. I don't know. And potentially there's some moving their way up from the south. Speak to that. But also, is Canada even an option, or can you not? Is that a absolute? We can't go across that border.
I don't believe Canada has been discussed. Just sticking to the technical working group's recommendations. We take their recommendations as wildlife experts very seriously. They did not consider Mexican wolves, but did specify gray wolves from northern Rocky states.
Got it. Canada or Alaska's out. I wonder if that's even something that's possible.
Yeah, I have not seen discussion of Alaska either.
Well, very interesting. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Just with what's next. This management plan is out. It's just a month in 2 days that it has been approved and signed. So what is next? What's the timeline, and how do folks stay informed on all this?
So we do have, you can sign up on our website to receive alerts and newsletters. So we do a monthly Wolf Reintroduction newsletter that you can get to your email and be notified of anything new or changing that's going on. You can also sign up for press releases. Any major changes, we would be, sending out a press release and would probably be reported on by other agencies, because this is definitely an issue that people are keeping eyes on. So media agencies are usually covering any changes that are happening. But going forward, we're going to be finding a source population and reintroducing wolves by the end of the year.
End of the year. Wow, yep. That's going to come pretty quick.
Yes.
And I'll be in that neck of the woods around September, so I'll be interested to see how that all unfolds, and I really encourage whether you're a participant or folks listening that for or against whatever, to really look at things with an objective lens, that we see things and we want to hear it, and before commenting too heavily, that you get educated and read a little bit, listen a little bit, and then develop your opinions. It drives me nuts to hear ignorant comments, and I'm outspokenly not really for the wolf being reintroduced, but it is what it is at this point, and that's besides the point. It's already been voted on. I spoke my what I could when I voted, and so that's completely out of my hands at this point. I did what I could and had those conversations, but now we have to look at this with a different lens, and I am always in support of state agencies, considering I work for one, and want to continue to provide that support. I throw a lot of money at Colorado Parks and Wildlife. That's my one state that I'm all in on my moose, goat, and sheep, and I will gladly pay that $2,000+ for one of those tags to be able to have that opportunity at one of the rams in one of the in the unit that's available for non-residents, or a moose or a sheep, or goat. But anyway, I always love to encourage folks to support the agencies, and I like that you said, and I'll echo that, with the folks in these agencies are the middlemen between all of these, the anti-groups, the sportsmen's groups, the conservation groups, and all those folks that have a voice at the table. That you're in the middle, and it's written down that a biologist with an opinion can't walk up to the commission and it is, in my opinion, no, it's all very science-based, fact-driven, that this is what they can deliver, to use that to sway the commission to vote one way or the other, and that's how that is designed. But Joey, I want to thank you for chatting with us about this difficult conversation, or easy conversation, however you look at it, and appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So again, if you want to read up on this management plan, where can they go?
You can find the entire plan on our website, cpw.state.co.us. That's the same place you can sign up for those e-news alerts, and yeah, you can view the entire plan there. I think I mentioned at the beginning, the actual plan is within the first 100 pages. The last couple 100 pages are the recommendations from the technical working group and stakeholder advisory group. All very interesting, but we do have summaries of each section in there as well, if you want to become more informed.
Great. All right, Joey, I'll let you go, and thanks again for setting this up for me.
Thank you.
Ground, this is God's country. Watch NFL quarterback Carson Wentz and his brother Zach on Tuesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern for your fix of a little brotherly competition, football, family, and the outdoors on Waypoint TV.